My in-laws tried to deport me, thinking I was just illegal immigrant, not knowing I actually owned their apartment complex. I married a woman whose family could smile while sharpening knives behind their backs. Maya and I met at a tech networking event in Santa Fe. She worked in community outreach. I was running my own software startup. We fell fast, moved in within 6 months, married in 15. She was everything good, compassionate, grounded, smarter than she knew. Her parents, on the other hand, were a walking lesson in passive aggression. Carol and Walter moved into the apartment complex a few months after the wedding. Maya had mentioned they were selling their house in Colorado Springs and needed a temporary place. I found them a 1-bedroom in a quiet corner unit for just $130 a month. In reality, I owned the entire 6-unit building, bought it in my late 20s after a profitable sale of a beta product to a logistics firm. Maya didn't know, not because I didn't trust her, but because she would have insisted on paying rent herself. Or worse, confessing to her parents, and I wasn't ready for that. At first I thought being close might help them accept me. I was wrong. It started with the little things. Carol accidentally tossed out a folder of my business contracts, then told Maya they looked like counterfeit paperwork. Walter started leaving printouts of ICE deportation stats circled in red ink on the kitchen counter. Maya tried to push back gently. He's your son-in-law. He's a citizen. He works in software, not smuggling. But they always turned it around, called her naive, said I was manipulating her. One night, as I cleared the dishes, Walter chuckled loudly while watching the news. "Look at that," he said, gesturing to the screen. "More illegals claiming asylum. You know what they're really after? Anchor babies and tax breaks." Carol sipped her coffee and added, "And our daughters. That's the part they don't say out loud." Maya dropped her fork. I stayed quiet. In my culture, you don't raise your voice to your in-laws. But silence, I was learning, was gasoline. Then came Super Bowl Sunday. I went all out. I cooked Maya's favorite steak pasta, wine from our honeymoon in Sonoma, even brought over desserts. I wanted a truce, or at least a neutral evening. No one even said thank you. Carol took my coat and immediately rifled through the pockets. She pulled out my wallet. "Can't be too careful these days," she said with a sugary smile. "What if something happens? Gotta have ID on hand." She photographed my driver's license and my corporate access card before I could react. Maya touched my back gently, our private signal for stay calm. "I've got you." She placed her hand on her belly as I stood up. That quiet, protective motion she'd been doing ever since we found out she was pregnant. We made it through most of the game in silence, except for the occasional forced cheer. I thought we were in the clear, but as I stepped out of the bathroom, everything shifted. Walter was waiting by the hallway, half drunk, gripping a beer like it owed him money. He blocked my path. "My daughter's not your damn immigration ticket," he said, voice low but heavy. "Don't think we don't see through the act. You think 'cause you put on a button-up and talk software, we'll believe you're legit." I held his gaze. "Excuse me, you heard me. We're not stupid, Julio. My name is Rafael." He smirked. "Close enough." I walked past him, jaw tight. My whole body felt like glass. I sat next to Maya and whispered, "We need to leave. Now." She saw my face and didn't question it. She stood, already reaching for her bag. But before we could move, Walter stood up, raising his voice to the entire room. "We know what you are." Carol chimed in, eyes gleaming. "He never talks about his family. You don't think that's strange? He hides everything, Maya. You're too blind to see it." "Stop," Maya said, her voice trembling. "Just stop." Carol turned to her, cold and calm. "Sweetheart, you don't get it. He's using you. To stay here. To look respectable." We did some digging. "What the hell are you talking about?" Maya said. "We have evidence," Walter said. "You think he's just some charming tech guy. He's a liar. He won't even say where he was born." "I was born in San Pedro Sula," I said quietly, standing. "Guatemala. I've been a US citizen since I was 19. That's what they all say." Carol snapped. Then, 3 hard knocks at the door. I thought it was a neighbor. Instead, it was 3 men in navy jackets, icy badges across their vests. Carol beamed. "That's him. That's the guy. He doesn't belong here," Walter said. "We have proof. His documents are fake." Maya gasped. I pulled out my wallet, my hands steady. "Officers, my name is Adrian Rivas. I'm a US citizen and the property owner of this building. These are my IDs. And this." I reached into my folder and handed over copies of title deeds, leases, and my business license. "This is proof I own units 4A through 4F, including the one they're currently behind on rent for." One of the officers read the paperwork, then looked at Walter and Carol. "Your rent's 3 months late," I added. "I've been lenient because of family." Another officer turned to them, clearly annoyed. "This isn't a joke. Stop wasting our time. We were just trying to." Carol stammered. "Protect her," Walter mumbled. "No," Maya said, finally finding her voice. "You were trying to ruin the one good thing I had." No one said a word as the officers left. I looked at Maya. "Let's go." We walked out together. That night, I left a 30-day notice taped to their door. After the ICE incident, things went eerily quiet. No more outbursts, No veiled jabs at dinner. Walter even complimented my pasta the following week. Carol smiled through her wine and asked about my app, like she suddenly cared what a tech founder actually did. Maya was relieved. Maybe they finally got the message, she whispered one night, curled into my chest. I wanted to believe her, but I'd learned something. Their silence wasn't surrender. It was regrouping. The next shift was subtle. Doctor appointments started clashing with my meetings. Not once, not twice, every time, Maya would tell me last minute that things had been moved around. Mum's schedule is tighter, she'd explain. She's been through this, you know. By then Maya was 5.5 months pregnant. We'd just seen the ultrasound a week earlier, the baby stretched out like a little astronaut in space. We'd picked out a name, even started arguing about which wall to paint. But every time I tried to talk about birth plans or nursery stuff, she'd get distant, nervous. The third time I had to rearrange work, I drove across town like a maniac, only to find Carol and Walter already in the waiting room. Walter flipping through a fishing magazine, Carol humming softly like this was her baby. When the nurse came out and asked for the father, Carol cut in immediately. He's not here, he couldn't make it. I'm right here, I said, stepping forward. The nurse blinked. Carol didn't flinch. Maya stood up fast and grabbed my hand, her fingers cold. I looked at her, trying to find any version of the woman who used to laugh in the kitchen while stirring pancake batter. I couldn't. That night, I waited until she finished brushing her teeth before saying anything. I've missed 3 meetings this week trying to make it to these checkups, I said. And you're letting them pretend I'm not part of this. They're just scared for me, she said, drying her face. You saw what happened last month. You don't understand how hard it's been. I understand this. They are replacing me in every part of your life. And you're letting them. She stared at the floor, biting her lip. You don't see how intense you get. That was the first time she said it like I was the problem. From that moment, things began unraveling. Carol started managing Maya's entire calendar, OB appointments, prenatal yoga, even the baby shower. Walter would pop into our unit with random dad tips and bags of hand-me-down baby clothes from God knows where. They acted like the baby was their second chance at parenting, one they could mold without me in the picture, and Maya let it happen. She stopped asking my opinion on anything related to the baby, whether it was car seats, stroller brands, or even the crib. We had one delivered to their unit, not ours. I asked why. Mum wanted to assemble it with me, she said. She thinks it's good bonding. I started to feel like a visitor in my own home. Conversations ended when I walked into a room. Maya became guarded, her phone always tilted away. One night I came home to find a parenting book bookmarked with notes in Carol's handwriting. Then came the night I found Maya up at 2 a.m., typing on her laptop in the dark. She didn't hear me walk in. On the screen, open tabs about financial manipulation. Reddit threads titled "My husband is hiding money, how to separate assets quietly." I cleared my throat. She slammed the laptop shut. What's going on? I asked, keeping my voice steady. It's just research, she said. I needed to know, just in case. In case of what? She didn't answer, but I saw her pull the blanket tighter around her stomach. A few days later, I learned she'd opened a separate checking account under her maiden name. Quietly, no mention of it to me. Why? I asked. I wanted one space that was just mine, she said. You have all these businesses, all this property. I don't even know what's in your name. I never hid any of that from you, I said. But you never told me either, she whispered. And that was it. She'd started seeing me the way they described me. Their version of me, a cold, foreign liar with secrets and schemes, was winning. The final blow came from a forwarded email I wasn't meant to see. Her cousin Carol's sister's daughter had helped Maya run a background search. Attached were records from 7 LLCs, ownership records, property deeds, my entire real estate portfolio laid out in a spreadsheet. That night, Maya looked at me across the dinner table like she was trying to do the math on her own life. I just needed to understand what I'm part of, she said. You're part of everything, I told her. She didn't respond. By the next morning, she was gone. Just a note on the kitchen counter. I need time to think. Please respect that. She was 6 months pregnant, and I was being erased from the story before my child was even born. For the first 3 days, I didn't hear from her. I texted once, then stopped. I didn't want to come off as controlling, not with the narrative already working against me, but the silence was unbearable. I started waking up at 4 a.m., panicked and pacing the apartment, rereading her note like it might change if I stared long enough. By day 4, I got a call, not from Maya, but from her OB clinic. She's updated her emergency contact, the nurse said carefully. It's now her mother. I stared at the floor, heart thudding. Is she okay? I asked. She's healthy. She just asked us not to share further details. She'd cut me off, not legally, not with paperwork, but in every practical way. Appointments, decisions, access, gone. I walked to their unit that evening. Carol opened the door like she was expecting me. She's resting, she said. And no, you can't come in. I just need to see her. She doesn't want that. I tried to look past her, but Walter was already standing behind her like a bouncer. You should leave, Raphael, he said. She needs peace. She's carrying my child, and she's protecting it, Carol said sharply. That broke me. I went back to our place, sat at the edge of the bed, and just stared at the wall. For hours. I didn't eat that day, maybe not the next either. I only moved when I had to. Emails to answer, code to review. I functioned. Barely. On the 7th day, I got a legal notice in my inbox. Not divorce papers. Worse. A formal custody petition. Prenatal. Carol and Walter were listed as co-petitioners for temporary guardianship. Their claim, concerns for maternal stress and housing instability. I laughed out loud. Then I nearly threw my laptop across the room. Housing instability. I owned the building they lived in. Their rent was $130 because I let it be, and now they were claiming I was the unsafe one. I called a lawyer that afternoon. A quiet man named Mark Delaney, who'd handled IP contracts for me years back. He read the filing twice, then said, "They're not trying to win. They're trying to wear you down. Paint you as a risk before the baby arrives." That night, I sat down and documented everything. Dates, emails, screenshots, the ice stunt, the financial digging, the prenatal lockout. I created a shared Google Drive and labeled it Defensive Measures. I also did something I'd been avoiding. I reached out to Maya's brother, Tom. We weren't close. He lived in Portland, only saw his parents a couple times a year, but he was calm, rational, and Maya trusted him. He picked up on the second ring. "I figured I'd be hearing from you," he said. "They called me too." "About what?" "About how you're dangerous, about how they might need help protecting the baby. But I know them, man. I've known them my whole life, and I know you're not the villain here." I nearly dropped the phone. Tom offered to fly in for the weekend, said he'd talk to Maya. I didn't ask for promises, just a chance. He arrived Saturday. I didn't see him until Sunday night. He knocked on my door, hair windblown, looking drained. "She's scared," he said, "but not of you, of them." I didn't speak. They've filled her head with fear. What if the baby's taken? What if ICE comes back? What if she loses everything, and she thinks the only way to stay safe is to do what they say? I nodded slowly. "So what now?" "She needs proof that you're still who you were before all this. Someone who builds, not hides." He paused. "Show her." So I did. I spent the next 2 days filming a private video journal. I showed every property deed, every LLC breakdown, my income, my immigration papers. I included photos of our first apartment, her laughing in the kitchen, my plans for a college fund. I even filmed myself walking through the baby's room, still half empty, untouched. I sent the link with no message. She watched it at 2 a.m., according to the view log. By morning there was a knock at my door, and when I opened it she was standing there, eyes swollen, belly visible, voice trembling. "I'm sorry," she said. "I forgot who you were." I didn't speak. I couldn't, but I remember now. Then she stepped inside. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself hope. But deep down, I knew. Carol and Walter weren't finished. They'd lost control, and they weren't the type to let that go quietly. Maya moved back in 3 days after the video. She didn't say much at first, just unpacked slowly, like she wasn't sure how long she'd be allowed to stay. I didn't push. We started with small things. Coffee in the mornings, sharing space without flinching. I watched her rebuild trust in real time, asking questions again, letting herself laugh, sitting closer during our walks. She even re-added me to her OB appointment calendar. But the quiet didn't last. One afternoon, I found a flyer taped to our front gate. Big red letters. "Protect local families from immigration fraud." It didn't mention names, but the wording was specific. Too specific. There was also a URL, a GoFundMe page. It was created by concerned neighbors and titled, "Help Maya Escape Abuse." My throat closed. The description said I had trapped a vulnerable pregnant woman using false identity and financial coercion, that I had no legal claim to the baby, and that Maya was being pressured to stay silent. Attached was a grainy photo of me entering our apartment, taken from across the street. Someone had been watching. "Carol," Maya whispered when she saw it. "It's them." Within hours, the fundraiser had over $7,000 in donations. People from the building started looking at me differently. The guy at the corner cafe took 5 minutes to make my usual order. Our mail started arriving. Opened. One of my tenants, Mrs. Foster, a sweet widow from Unit 5C, left me a voicemail, asking if I was okay to be around children. I felt the walls close in again. Maya called Tom in tears. He flew out the next day, stormed into their apartment, and tried to confront them. "They doubled down," he told me after. "Said you were manipulating her again." Carol said, direct quote, "It's not abuse if it's true." I went to my lawyer. Mark read through the GoFundMe, then pulled up state defamation laws. "We have a case," he said, "but if we pursue it, be ready. They'll come at you harder, publicly." "I don't care anymore," I said. "Let them try." We filed a cease and desist first. Carol ignored it. Then we filed an emergency injunction, and that's when it really escalated. 2 days later, Child Protective Services showed up at our door. A woman named Kimberly stood in our hallway, polite but firm. She said there'd been an anonymous report about verbal threats and unfit housing. She asked to see the nursery. asked Maya if she felt safe, took notes on my ID, our apartment's layout, and even our grocery list on the fridge. Maya was shaking the whole time. After they left, she sat on the floor and cried for nearly an hour. They won't stop, she whispered. They'll keep coming until they take everything. They won't win, I said, kneeling beside her, because we're not hiding anymore. I called my real estate lawyer. We initiated formal eviction proceedings for Walter and Carol. I had avoided it out of loyalty, out of love for Maya. Not anymore. The court date was set for mid-May. We submitted non-payment as the grounds 3 months late. No partial payments, multiple ignored notices. Carol showed up in court with pearls and a pink folder. Walter wore a military-style jacket like he thought it would win him sympathy. Their defense: family misunderstanding. They claimed I'd verbally agreed to let them stay rent-free as long as needed. That I was changing the rules because Maya had left me. They cried in front of the judge, called me vindictive, claimed I was endangering the baby by kicking out her only support system. I submitted every payment record, every message, every photo. I even showed the officer's report from the ICE call how they'd filed a false claim. The judge looked at them, then at me, and ruled in my favor. They had 21 days to vacate. Maya didn't celebrate. She just looked tired. The night before they were scheduled to move, she got one final call from her mother. I only heard Maya's side of it. "No, I'm not coming over because I don't want to be alone with you. You tried to ruin him, Mom. You almost succeeded." She paused, then said the part that broke me. "I loved you so much. I still do. But I can't ever trust you again." She hung up and cried in my arms. The next morning, their unit was empty. They left no note, no apology, just the GoFundMe page. Still active, still live. The balance read 10,180. After they left, it took weeks for the building to feel normal again. Their old unit sat silent, blinds drawn, the faint scent of Carol's perfume still lingering near the doorframe. I had the locks changed, scrubbed the walls, left the lease unsigned. Maya went into nesting mode. She scrubbed the baseboards at 1 a.m., reorganized the kitchen twice, and folded and refolded the same tiny onesies like they might dissolve in her hands. We argued over cribs, over strollers, over whether avocado green was calming or hideous, and slowly the air between us shifted. She started sleeping again, laughing again. But I didn't. I still woke before sunrise, checked the security camera feed first thing, still scanned our names online every few days. The GoFundMe was still live, nearly $12,000 now, and the comments were getting worse. One woman wrote, "Men like him deserve deportation, not fatherhood." Another said, "She's lucky to have escaped." I reported the page 5 times. Nothing happened, so I stopped trying to get it removed. I decided to burn it down publicly. Tom introduced me to a journalist, Elena Varro, an investigative reporter from Albuquerque, who'd covered wrongful ICE raids. She agreed to meet, no promises. I brought a flash drive. She stayed for 2 hours. The next week, her story dropped. The landlord, the lie, and the baby. How a pregnant woman's parents weaponized immigration fear. It went viral in under 48 hours. She laid everything bare. The false ICE call, the GoFundMe scam, their refusal to pay rent while claiming abuse. Even snippets from the court transcript. The backlash was swift. People flooded the GoFundMe with refund demands. Someone hacked Carol's Facebook and posted a thread of all her anti-immigrant comments dating back years. Walter's old job, some HOA board position, removed him within a week. We didn't celebrate, just sat in the living room, watching it all burn. "They'll blame me," Maya said softly. "Even now." "They already did," I replied, "and we're still here." A few days later, Carol tried to contact her, not directly, through a friend of a friend. A typed letter in a sealed envelope delivered to our door. It wasn't an apology. It was a list, bullet points. "You misunderstood our intentions. We acted out of concern. He is still a stranger to us. Love doesn't erase deception." At the bottom in shaky pen, "You'll see when the baby comes. You'll miss your mother." Maya tore it in half without reading the rest. The baby came 2 weeks early. Maya went into labor during a thunderstorm. The roads were slick, her contractions already 5 minutes apart. I drove 70 in a 40, flashing hazard lights, one hand on the wheel, the other on hers. We made it in time, barely. It was a boy, 7 pounds, 1 ounce, head full of dark hair, quiet little lungs. Maya sobbed the moment she held him. I didn't cry until hours later, when they let me swaddle him alone for the first time. We named him Leo. That night, while they both slept, I walked the hospital hallway in silence. Nurses nodded. Machines beeped softly. A new kind of quiet. And then an email, from Carol, subject line, "For Leo, no message body." Just a photo attached. Maya as a baby, sitting on a blanket, her mother's arms around her. I didn't show it to Maya. I deleted it. Some silences are worth preserving. 2 weeks later, I closed the GoFundMe account myself. I filed fraud paperwork. Most donors had already demanded refunds, but whatever was left I redirected it to a local immigrant family center. Anonymous. They'll never know who did it, but I did, and that was enough. Update. 3 months later, the sun hit differently. We started going on walks again, just the 3 of us. Leo in the sling against my chest, Maya beside me with a coffee she never finished. People still stared sometimes. Some recognized us from the article. Others just saw a young couple with a baby and kept moving. No one asked questions. I'd sold the apartment building. It wasn't spontaneous. The idea had been growing in me for weeks. I didn't want to own the place where Maya had cried on the floor, where ice had knocked on my door, where Carol's perfume still haunted the hallway. It sold quickly. Young couple, first-time buyers. I left the price low. We moved to a rental house in Corrales. 1 story, backyard shaded by pecan trees. No shared walls, no hallway voices, no knock at the door from people who just want to check in. Leo's room faces east. Every morning, light floods the crib. He stretches like a cat, fists clenched, blinking like he's surprised the sun came back. Sometimes I still wake up expecting it all to return. The noise, the fear, the need to prove I belong. But it doesn't. And in that stillness, I started writing again. Not code, not contracts. A letter, for my son. I haven't printed it yet, haven't sealed it in an envelope. But it starts like this. Leo, one day you'll ask why some people smile at you and others stare. Why your last name makes people guess things. Why someone once tried to erase your father before you were even born. And I'll tell you the truth. You came from love, from fight, from a woman brave enough to leave her family, and a man who refused to disappear. I don't know when I'll give it to him. Maybe on his 18th birthday. Maybe never. Maybe he'll just know.